Welcome, everybody. My name is Marty Mascari. I'm with the North Central Texas Area Agency on Aging. And once again, we're here with our friends at the James L. West Center for Dementia Care in Fort Worth to talk about managing emotional behavior in dementia care. And Hollie Glover is going to be our speaker today, and we're just, once again, incredibly blessed to have her. But before we get started, we're going to talk about CEUs. And since Jamie's not here, I'll go through this if you'd like. Okay. So the CEUs for today, and I've been bringing this up a lot because depending on the webinar you're watching with us, there's different CEU providers. And so all of them have a different CEU setup. And so for today's webinar, it's set up for nurses, social workers, LPCs, and certificates of attendance. It's set up in Texas. So those of you watching from outside of Texas or licensed and are looking for CEUs, you're more than welcome to grab a certificate. Whether they'll take it or not, that's up to your, your jurisdiction. I've had people tell me they've had them taken, but I don't know, and there's no way to know whether they will be. But since they're at no cost, you're more than welcome to go through the process and get a certificate. In order to get one, you need to participate in the entire live webinar. You must complete the Survey Monkey evaluation, and you're going to find there's two different evaluations. The Survey Monkey evaluation, I will send out the link in the follow-up email, and it is specifically for people wanting CEUs or certificates of attendance. There'll be a second email. There'll be another survey, which is a Google survey. That survey should pop up as you close out today. That depends on how your firewall is set up and some kind of things. I know most people get it. It pops up right away because I get, before I ever send out the follow-up email, I've got about 3/4 of the people that have already filled it out. But you'll get both those two surveys. The Google survey is for us and our funding. I need you to fill that out if you would. The Survey Monkeys survey is specifically for the CEUs or the certificates of attendance. The surveys will stay up for 1 week, both of them. So by the end of the day, next Tuesday, they'll close out, and the CEU certificates will be emailed out to the email address you put in the survey as you're filling out the survey. So make sure you get that right, and please check it. It's really very time consuming if there's a mistake in one or a few of them to try to go in and chase down what the right answer is, and then or you don't get your certificate and you get frustrated. So just double check your emails addresses you're putting them in. I think it would help both of us. So that's it for CEUs. We'll go over that again at the end. I want to turn it over to Hollie and let her talk about our topic today.
All right. Yes, I was looking at the chat. And Marty, last month we talked about managing physical behaviors. Yes. Is that recorded somewhere where people could get that?
It is. I have the recording of that, and I will send that out to you. I will include that in the follow-up email to this. I'll include that recording. I got to be careful because it's a little bit confusing, and I don't want to confuse people, because then there'll be another recording of this you'll get in a second follow-up email. Okay. But yes, we have it recorded, and yes, I'll include. It's probably going to be easier if I include it in the second follow-up email, just because I'll have both of them there, and so you see the difference, and people don't assume that the one I'm sending is today's.
Good idea. I've had several people ask, oh my goodness, I missed the one on physical behaviors. Are you going to do it again? I said, no, we've recorded it. So I just wanted to ask you while we're all on here together.
And just so you know, I believe that that Jamie has put a link on your website now to our YouTube channel.
Perfect. Perfect. So this is managing emotional behaviors in dementia care. Last month we did managing physical behaviors in dementia care. Of course, there's going to be some overlap. So some of this, if you were on last month, that may sound familiar. That's all right. We know we've got to hear something 7 times for it to stick with us. So here's our objectives for today. Here's my information for those of you that need it if you're getting your CEUs. I am a licensed professional counselor. I'm the director of Education and Family Support Services here at the James L. West Center for Dementia Care in Fort Worth, Texas. So I get to run all of our support groups. I get to do one-on-one counseling, but I was a school teacher first for 20 years. I taught school. I saw some folks on here from Grand Prairie. I taught school in Grand Prairie. And this is my second life, my second career. So I've been doing this for several years, for many years. Worked at the Alzheimer's Association and believe that everybody should stay home as long as possible. And then when it's time to place appropriately. And I love to get to teach about dementia, caregiver stress, hospice, and I am also a licensed grief therapist. So let's talk about behaviors and dementia. What in the world, why do people become combative with dementia? And we started with this slide last time, and I'm going to start with the same slide again so that we all understand that it is normal that about 90% of people who have dementia are going to be combative at some point during the disease. It is usually during that ADL time. So ADL, activities of daily living, those are the things we tend to do day to day: grooming, bathing, dressing, mealtime, toileting. So think about for just a minute, why in the world would somebody become combative, either physically or verbally, during that time? We're just trying to help them get dressed. We're just trying to help them toilet or bathe or brush their teeth or take their medicine. Why are they hitting, pushing, kicking, spitting, grabbing, cursing, being demanding? Well, this is why. Let's look at what's happening to their brain. A person who has dementia, now this particular picture, and this is pictures of real brains, this particular picture is Alzheimer's disease, but we know that with all dementias, and there are over 100 different types of dementia, that brain is beginning to atrophy. The brain on the left that says normal, that's about a 3-pound brain. That's what all of our brains should look like. That one on the right, that's in stage dementia, that's about a 1-pound brain. The brain is failing, the brain is dying, regardless of what type of dementia it is. Alzheimer's disease is the most common type or form of dementia. It's about 60 to 80% of all dementias. So right in the middle, that's 70%. So about 70% of all dementias is Alzheimer's disease. But like I said, there's over 130 different types or kinds of dementias. So how can we expect that person on the right to act like the person on the left? So yes, I am just trying to assist them at mealtime or assist them in the bathroom. But I've been doing those things for myself since I was 2 or 3 years old. And so I believe that I know how to do those things because that's in my long-term memory. And all I have left is what's there on the right. And we're going to talk about some things that are left and some things that go away. And so I'm using what I have left. And what I have left is my fist and some curse words, maybe some racial slurs or some sex talk. And I use those words to get my needs met. So again, why do people who have dementia, why do people impacted by dementia have these challenging behaviors? So here's the brain again, and I wanted you to be able to see this again. We used this slide last time, but I want you to be able to see what part of the brain controls what, because everything that we do is controlled by the brain. So many times when I'm talking with families, they have a really difficult time understanding, well, why isn't the antibiotic working anymore? It's always worked in the past. Well, what tells the antibiotic to work? The brain does. Well, why aren't they gaining weight? They're still eating. Well, what tells the food to metabolize? The brain does. The brain is failing. We just looked at the brain. That brain's dying. Eventually, that part of the brain that tells the body to do that isn't working anymore. We're especially going to look at this frontal part of the brain in just a little bit. But all behavior, whether it's physical behavior or whether it's emotional behavior, is a form of communication. It's the same for us. A person with dementia is trying to express an unmet need. We've just got to learn to kind of decode that. What is it that they are trying to tell us? They usually occur because they're frightened or they're frustrated. They're doing the best they can with what they have left. Again, the most common trigger is during care time. They're confused, they're not understanding, or they're trying to help. They may be having delusions, and we're going to break down the difference in a hallucination, a delusion, and paranoia today. They may not be able to tell the difference between what is real and what is imagined. Or hallucination, that perception of something that's not present, but they think it is. So they become aggressive. It can also be boredom, and it can also be loneliness. These are some more pictures of brains at end of life. This is looking down so that you can see the difference in a 3-pound and a 1-pound brain, to give you an idea as to why we might have some challenging behaviors. We talk about so often that dementia is a hidden disease. Early in the disease, you can't see it. They could be sitting here even having a conversation and you can't see the disease. It's not like some diseases that you can physically see. Later, you'll be able to see it. But some other things that may cause them to have an emotional behavior, they're not understanding what we're saying to them, or they're overstimulated. Eventually, toward the end of the disease, we're even going to call that last stage of the disease the sensory stage. They're going to communicate with their senses, and their intake is going to be through their senses. So if they're overstimulated, there's too many lights, there's too many sounds, we could have some challenging behaviors. We may be asking them to do something that they just can't do anymore, even if they could do it yesterday. And so we have a challenging behavior. They may be having pain. That is what we always want to assess for first. That's why I have it in bold on here, bold and in all caps. We always assess for pain first, but we can't say to somebody with dementia, are you in pain? Because 9 times out of 10, they are going to say no. We learned the word no very early. It was probably one of the first 5 words that most of us learned, and they're going to keep the word no. We read their body language. So if we were to say, are you in pain? And this no, but they're scrunching their brow or their face, they're holding it, or they're gripping it, well, what are they really saying? Yes, I'm in pain, leave me alone. But they use the word no. But we get a challenging behavior because they're in pain. Now we know to treat that pain, even though they said no. They may be misinterpreting what it is we said or we did. They may be startled. They may not like the way we're treating them, or they feel like they're being treated like a child. Conflict, desire to leave, especially later in the day or this time of day. We may have some sundowning going on. But probably about 80% of the time with challenging behaviors, it's environmental. It's something in the environment, or unfortunately, we cause it. We would never do it on purpose, but it's something that we say or do that causes it or triggers it. So that's why we do these classes, and that's why we're glad that you're here. So some other risk factors that can increase unwanted behaviors. Now, keep in mind, you notice that first one says being in a new environment. So let's say that our loved one has moved into a nursing home or into an assisted living, or we've just had to move, we've downsized. It takes about 72 hours for them to adjust to a new place, a new room, a new facility. So even if they are in a facility or in a community or in a center, whatever it's called, and they have to change rooms, because at a place, we are a nursing home, but we move to different houses as the disease progresses, they move to a different house. It takes about 72 hours for them to kind of settle. The other thing to keep in mind, and this is for all of us, it takes 28 to 30 days to make or break a habit. This is for everybody, 28 to 30 days to make or break a habit. So this stays with dementia. It takes a while for them to settle in. So when a person first moves into memory care, or first moves into that nursing home or that assisted living, many times after the first week or two, if they haven't settled right in, families will go, oh my goodness, I've made a mistake, I need to take them home. No, give them 28 to 30 days. You need that time and they need that time. 28 to 30 days to make or break a habit. There's that undiagnosed pain again, a physical problem, UTIs, urinary tract infections. I used to work for the Alzheimer's Association and worked the hotline. They have that 800 number that you can call 24/7. You get real people. I used to be one of those people that you could get. And they will talk you through whatever's going on. And if for the first time somebody hit, kicked, spit, pinched, cursed for the first time, we always said, go get them checked for a UTI, see if they have a urinary tract infection. Because they will start to develop more UTIs, but they can't tell you. Even if you ask them, they won't be able to tell you. And then side effects from medication, boredom and loneliness again, and a negative approach from the caregiver. Again, we would never intentionally do it. So I broke this down by stages. We're going to look at some things that can happen by stages, and then we're going to look at some specific emotional behaviors, but some things that are specific to stages. And this, again, if you have a loved one with dementia, or if you work in the field, I'm sure you have seen this. Let me see if I'm going to say this right. Anosognosia. And this is when, and I put the definition there. And again, if you've had a loved one get diagnosed, I'm certain you've seen this. This is when it's just an inability to accept that they have the condition. A lack of ability to perceive the realities of one's own conditions. They can't see it. They can't. They cannot see that their symptoms match this diagnosis. In other words, they can't be reasonable or rational anymore. Why is that? That frontal part of the brain, and we're going to look again, I talked about that frontal part of the brain. That's where rational and reasonable behavior is right here, as that's where some of the earliest atrophy takes place, is that brain is beginning to shrink. And sometimes this is the very first symptoms we see. They're still doing everything. They're living on their own, but they're not being very reasonable. During the early stages, what we want to focus on is normalization. We want to keep their lives as normal as possible. We may see a lot of anger in somebody who's in the early stages of the disease. at the root of most anger. This is with somebody with dementia, and it's also in us. The root of most anger, fear. Fear. They know something's wrong. They knew something was wrong before we knew something was wrong with them. Just like we know our bodies, they know their own body. And they knew something was wrong. Before we brought it up, they knew. Lots of times families will then find notes hidden. They will find, I've had support group members tell me they found vitamin supplements that they'd been taking and they were hiding because they knew something was wrong. So you might start getting things from your loved one. Well, you forget just as much as I do. They're in that denial, that lack of self-awareness. Think about what's happening. They're losing their independence. They're losing themselves. So they may become resistant to care. But another thing that's up here in this frontal area of the brain is that being able to do things in step by step. So they may start to leave out steps. And so they're leaving out a step, and we're just trying to help, and then we get an emotional reaction, or we may get a physical reaction from them. At the end of the day, it's because they're afraid. And we can see a lot of depression during this time. So what are some things we can do? One of the first things we want to do is we want to try to prevent it. We want to get ahead of it and try to prevent it by starting with routine. Routine. We were doing a Stress Busters class earlier today, and someone mentioned routine is so important. Trying to have that structure, simplifying the environment. A person with dementia does not do well with clutter. Even if they're the one who tends to bring in the clutter, they want to hoard. But maybe when they're asleep, we have to take the clutter out. Early in the disease, we can provide written reminders. We can use Post-it notes, and they will do well because they can still read and comprehend. There's going to come a time where they can read, but they won't be able to comprehend. So they'll be able to read, but not comprehend. They'll lose the ability to comprehend, but they'll still be able to read. I hope you heard that. We're going to make sure and give positive reinforcement throughout the day. And then how do we respond? We've got to watch for their frustration and start providing reassurance, because they will start to ramp up, is what I always call it. If we start watching for that frustration and we intervene, and we're going to talk about ways to intervene. We do not want to test somebody's memory. One of the worst things we can do, and I see families do this, never go up to somebody who has dementia and say, do you know who I am? Do you know what day it is? If the doctor is going to do an MMSE, if the psychologist is going to do some tests with them, that's one thing. They've got on the white coat and they've got on the name tag. But as their spouse and as their child and as their grandchild, we don't have any business doing that to them. We wouldn't want somebody doing that to us. Imagine how that makes them feel. And then we wonder why we get an emotional outburst. And we might not get it until a little bit later, but it's because they're upset. Because as we're going to find out, their amygdala in their brain stays intact throughout the course of this disease. That amygdala doesn't go anywhere. Their hippocampus dies, the facts go away, their amygdala stays intact. The amygdala is the emotions and the feelings, and that's why we get emotional behaviors. And somebody comes up and asks, do you know who I am? And I don't, but it seems like maybe I should. You stupid. So I'm going to give you one of these, and I'm going to say a word that's ugly, because that's what I have left. Because that right side of the brain's still intact, that right rhythmic remains, while that left language leaves. My day-to-day on the left is leaving. Here's the moderate stage. So some new behaviors that may show up in the moderate stage that could come into emotional. We may have more arguing in the moderate stage, more sleep disturbances, some more agitation because they're not understanding more and more. They can't communicate and get their needs met. They're having a hard time finding the words, so we're getting more of the thing and the stuff. You know, the thing and the thing and the thing and the thing, it's the stuff and the stuff. You know, the stuff. So this middle stage, that first stage, we talked about normalization. This middle stage, we're going to call more of a supportive stage. They're going to need help with everything. We're not taking it over, but we're going to come alongside, provide dignity and independence and support during this stage. We can start having some difficult behaviors. They often start in the middle stages. And it often starts because their comprehension and their language skills start to decline. So they start to find other ways to interact. This is when, again, they need more hands-on care and more supervision, but it's pretty rare in the moderate stage that we're having to do everything. This is when we're coming alongside. Probably not using a knife anymore, but we can probably still use a fork, but lots of using the spoon. Needing assistance with getting dressed. We're not making very many choices anymore, or if we are, we're just making a couple of choices. And because I only have to make a couple of choices, I don't get that upset. And then if you have me just go in there and look at a closet to pick something out. But if I just have red or blue and my voice is up and I'm smiling, that's not too hard of a choice to make. Again, consistent routine, give them the right to say no. And this is where we have to learn sometimes to let things go. Program I was doing earlier, I talked about, I had a family member whose loved ones wanted to wear his boots to bed and she couldn't get over it. And I ended up having to say, at the end of the day, does it matter? Will he sleep with his boots on? Yes. Will you sleep if he has his boots on and he's asleep? Yeah, probably. Then let him sleep with his boots on. What difference does it make? Choose your battles. This middle stage is where we really have to learn, choose your battles. Behaviors are caused by the effects on the brain and how you interact with and care for your loved one. If they're not wanting to do something, we're probably going to need to come back to it later. This is where a lot of people start to use respite care and adult day programs. We definitely are going to be breaking tasks down into small steps, one step at a time. What worked in the early stage isn't going to work in the mid stage. We are going to bring those steps down to 3 to 5 word sentences and use verbal reminders because written reminders aren't going to work. Because even though they may be able to read the words on the page, they're not going to know what the words mean anymore. Lots of reassurance, simple answers, and then we are learning how to let go of those small sayings. And we're starting to seek that help outside of the home, getting involved in support groups. Let's look at those late stage challenges. Late stage, this is more of that sensory stage. They're going to be able to communicate with us through their senses. We're going to communicate with them through their senses. Everything changes. They're going to need assistance with everything at this point. They may talk. You see us have talk in quotes constantly, and that may be that word salad. And then you get a word because they may keep 3 to 5, some people up to 10 words, no being one of them, mama being one of them, daddy sometimes being one, baby, light. Some of those words that we learned very early on, they may keep all the way till the end of their life, but they can still make their needs known. A little bitty baby makes their needs known, emotional and physical. So can a person with dementia at the end stage. They're going to have a very hard time following instructions, and we're going to have to use lots of gestures, and they are going to be able to follow gestures. They're going to be able to read our tone, our body language, and our facial expressions, because their amygdala is intact. So they're going to be able to read that about us, even after they have a flat affect. And it doesn't look like they're even there. They are. As the disease continues to progress and gets close to the end of the disease, they may seem to be kind of in a semi-alert state. Toward the end of the disease, they may even sleep up to 20 hours a day. They're needing more sleep. Their body needs to sleep. At the end stage of the disease, they'll be completely incontinent. They're going back to who they originally were. We were not walking. We were not talking. We were not feeding ourselves. We were not taking ourselves to the bathroom. We're going back to that at the end of the disease. It's retrogenesis. Managing those late stage behaviors, we're responding. We're not reacting. We're responding. We refocus and we make connections. That's what the end stage is all about, is making connections as often as possible. We look through the behavior to the emotion. We use lots of touch. We call this type of touch compassionate touch, just like you would with a little one, compassionate touch, and pay attention to those nonverbal signs. So let's look at the best steps of intervention, and this is for everyone at all stages of the disease. I've got 4 pictures over here on the left, and I've got them out of order because food should be on top. The number one best distraction for people with dementia almost always is food. The sweeter, the better. They tend to start losing their taste. Most everybody will keep sweet. I always say God's gift to dementia was ice cream. And then you also see music. And if you can put food and music together, keep in mind this is their music. Lots of times not our music, not your music, but their music. And then I've got children and animals. Funny videos of children and baby animals, especially if you can pull up videos, or if you happen to have some real pets or some little children around, those are great ways to distract somebody with dementia. A person with dementia can only hold one thought at a time. And so if we can get them distracted over here to this thought, and we are going to have to change locations because in this location, I'm having this thought and this behavior. And if I don't move from this location, I'm gonna loop back. It's called looping. They will come back in about 20 seconds and they'll loop back. So even if I go to the other side of this same room, we can get them distracted. We need to approach with our hands by our side and make sure we don't have an aggressive stance as well. When somebody is having a hard time understanding what we're saying, we want to make sure and give one-step instructions. I did this last time and I want to do it again. As the disease progresses, it can take up to 20 full seconds for a person with dementia to fully process what was said. So I am going to give a 2-word command. I'm going to say, sit here, sit here. I'm patting the chair and I'm sitting also, but I'm going to wait 20 seconds. I want you to listen to how long 20 seconds is. I'm going to set my timer. Sit here. That's 10. That's a long time. That was 20 seconds. Most of us would have already said it again several times, and we may have changed our tone. I said, sit here. I said, sit down. Would you just sit down already? And we wonder why we had a challenging behavior. They didn't even have time to comprehend it. They have to hear it. It's got to go in. They've got to figure it out. And then their body has to have the time to do it. I watched a woman fall flat on her face. She hit with her face, and then she put her arms out to the side to catch herself. because that's when her body said you're falling after she'd already hit her face. 20 seconds. We've got to give them time. And if you do repeat, use the exact same words with the same tone. If we don't, they're going to hear something else and their 20 seconds is going to start over. Keep in mind, whenever we're asking them to do something that might be too difficult for them, they may start to feel out of control, and that can cause a challenging behavior. Just like if someone were to bring in here a really, really difficult math test and tell me that my job depended on this math test, I could have a really bad behavior, but my filter is intact. And so hopefully I would not. I might have a panic attack, but if my filter weren't intact, I might have a physical or an emotional behavior because it would cause me, because I don't understand what you're asking me to do. Well, this could be something like put these pants on, or get in the car, or take this pill. And then we're wondering why we're getting a behavior when they're not understanding what we're asking them to do. Even if they've done it for the last 70 years, take a shower. Well, maybe that shower's scary now because how many steps are there to taking a shower? And maybe the last time I took a shower, you told me that I didn't do it right. And this is the one place in my life that I have some control because I can say no to this, because I've lost control of everything else. It's very frustrating for a person with dementia whenever they can't communicate their needs. So we've got to start looking for the meanings behind the words. So when they start using the word thing and stuff, and they'll use thing and stuff a lot, you know, the thing, and the thing, and the thing, and the thing, and the stuff. One of the best things we can go to is show me the thing. What does the thing do? Show me the stuff. What does the stuff do? Can you point to the stuff? Can you point to the thing? And my voice is staying up. Can you show me? Because lots of times they'll be able to show you. And then if you're like at a menu, try to point to, I'm going to have this. What do you think about that? And that way you didn't take their choices away. Or would you rather have this one or that one? And we didn't take their choices away and we didn't take away their dignity. So we're going to go through these next few, and we're going to get short on time. I'm going to start going through some specific emotional behaviors. And you're getting these slides. Yes, you're getting these slides. And we're going to talk about some interventions for some specific behaviors. So when somebody's becoming verbally aggressive with all of these behaviors, the first thing we want to do is we want to think, do we even need to intervene? Are they harming themselves? Are they harming someone else? Kind of like sleeping in the cowboy boots. At the end of the day, did we need to intervene? No, we did not. So if somebody's becoming verbally aggressive, let's think about why they may be doing that. First of all, let's think about why they may use those words. You heard me mention earlier, right rhythm remains. So rhythmic language stays. Left language leads. That's our regular day-to-day language leads. But there's language over here, that rhythmic language that stays. So that's poetry, music, prayer, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those stay. But so does racial slurs, sex talk, and curse words, because they didn't store on the left side with our day-to-day language, because when we first heard those many years ago, somebody said to us, I better never hear you say those words again. So we didn't store them on the left, we stored them on the right, and they remain. So I'm in pain, and you're asking me if I'm hurting. And the only word that's coming out of my mouth is curse word, because I'm in pain and that's the only word I have left. As a caregiver, I cannot get so hung up on that bad word that's coming out of their mouth that I don't meet their need. You see what I'm saying? Everything they do is about an unmet need. Now, this can be as simple as, I had someone leave a mop bucket in the middle of the floor, and a gentleman picked it up and threw it. Well, why did he throw it? Because he was trying to get from A to B and there was a mop bucket in the middle of the floor. Why didn't he go around it? Because he's got a brain that's dying. There was the mop bucket in the middle of the floor. So he moved it the best way that he knew how. We have to stand back and think about why they're doing what they're doing. Cannot take what they're doing personally. We've got to remain calm. It's hard to do. And use that validation therapy. I know you're scared. I'm scared too. And if we then mirror their feelings and emotions, that connection will happen. I'm scared too. Let's talk about this. And I approach with my palms up, not like this, because that's a grab. My palms up might make that connection. If they're having repeated words, yelling, screaming, or crying, we may try something like, shh, did you hear that? Because we learned this when we were very young ourselves. Shh. There's a difference in, shh, the baby's crying, and I said, hush. We're not doing that. But if we did, shh, did you hear that? Sometimes that'll get them quiet just long enough that we can start some music, or we can hand them the ice cream, or here's the puppy, or we can get them distracted over here just long enough to get them off of whatever it is over here that they're so upset with. And it is okay to hold your loved one and rock with them and sing to them, especially as this disease progresses. They're needing to be soothed. They're needing that self-soothing. And you may catch yourself holding and rocking and just loving on them and telling them, it's okay. I'm here with you. I've got you. Some of the best things we can do, and what a connection we're making with them if we do. Here's more about that validation therapy. That's where we are using that word okay a lot. Okay is not saying you're right. Okay, saying I heard you. Tell me more about that. Is that right? When people are using that word salad, that's actually my favorite stage of the disease. I can have conversations with people at that stage of the disease all day long. Tell me more about that. Because they will still have inflection in their voice. Really? Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. What else happened? And they will talk and talk and talk and talk. Validation therapy. Here's that picture of the amygdala. It shows where it is in the brain, and that amygdala stays intact. They have poor judgment. We do not have poor judgment. They don't have impulse control. We do have impulse control. These are some of the main things for us to take away from this. And sometimes, unfortunately, they just need to see another face. It's just us. It's just the way we're approaching it. We've said it over and over and over, and they're tired of hearing it. They're tired of seeing us, and they need another face. We need to tag team out. That's what happens so many times with placement, is families will go, well, why is it they almost seem better? They're doing better up here with you than they were with me at home. Well, because there's one of you and there's 168 of us, and we can tag team out, and we have departments, and we get to clock in and clock out, and you're not getting to clock in and clock out. You're doing it 24/7, and you're doing the job of 168 people. So again, I'm going to hit some of these pretty fast just because of time. Agitation is considered an emotional behavior. So your loved one, again, is sensing the emotion and tone in your voice, and they can respond in the same way. So let me get over here to how to respond to agitation. Agitation responds really well to keeping that routine, but having some built-in stimulation. Stimulation's not sitting in front of the TV all day. A person with dementia typically needs some times when they're pretty busy with their hands. They also need a purpose. So finding that purpose. whether it's sorting papers, running papers through the shredder, helping you do something, even if it's not the way you would have it done. Allow them to put the silverware up, allow them to put the towels up. It doesn't matter if they're not putting it in the place that you want to have it. Don't ignore any of these problems. Try to find the causes behind it and then deal with it from there. I want to get over to the hallucinations, delusions, and paranoia. So with delusions, what's happening is they're having a false belief that they can develop about what's happening to them. They're very, very real to the person that's experiencing them. And they're typically situations that do occur in real life. For example, I've had residents who live in a community, but they believe they're on a cruise ship. So is there any reason to do anything about that? Absolutely not. This is a beautiful cruise ship. I love this cruise. It's the best thing ever. Why would we correct that? Or they may believe that it's time to go to work or time to pick up their children. Then we use those therapeutic stories. Many of you have heard me say, I've been to seminary, so I don't call them lies, because I truly believe God knows the difference. We use those therapeutic stories. Someone else is picking your kids up for you today. They just called. Hey, come over here and let's talk about your kids. Tell me about your kids. I think they're having ice cream over here. Is that cinnamon rolls I smell? And you just get to where you can roll these therapeutic stories off your tongue. Alzheimer's Association calls them fiblets. They are lies. Hallucinations. These can be visual, they can be auditory, they can be other sensory illusions that are not seen, heard, tasted, or smelled by other people. The most common ones are sight and sound. Keep in mind that TV can trigger hallucinations. It's really common. Veterans especially may be triggered by things on TV. I had a veteran who was here, who actually was in 9/11, who was triggered by whenever, every year when they start showing it on TV again, war movies, even MASH. We think of that as a comedy, but there are some episodes where it isn't a comedy. So we've got to be careful about what's on TV. And I have to talk with family members because they'll say, but I want to watch it. Well, then we're going to have to watch it later because we accommodate the disease. They can't. They're doing the best they can. And sometimes families will tell me, well, that's all they want to watch. Well, maybe that channel needs to go away. And we can do that. Sometimes channels go away and all we have left is the Game Show Network and ESPN and whatever it is that works for you. I also had someone who had babies under her bed. There's babies under the bed, babies under the bed. So we make, is this causing any harm? Well, yes, she was very upset. We had to go get the babies out from under the bed. So I got down on my knees and I started pulling babies out from under the bed until she told me I had them all. And then I told her, and did a good thing, we've got nurses here. Come down here with me. Let's go get us something. In fact, we needed Dr. Pepper. Let's get us a Dr. Pepper while these nurses check these babies out. She never mentioned the babies again. Where they came from, I don't know. Happened one time. Paranoia is that unrealistic and unfounded fear or suspicion. Most people at one time or another have paranoia. Somebody's taken their money. There's people in this building out to get me. But people getting my money is a pretty common one. This is a pretty easy one to fix. And again, use that word okay. I used to have people come in my office and tell me, you're the one that stole my money. Okay, well, we're not having that. Let me call the bank right now. We're going to fix it. And I'd pick up my office phone and I'd call my cell phone and I'd wear the bank out, slam it down. Glad we got that fixed. What is that I smell? Are they making cookies down there? And off we go. Because we can't stay in here, because if I stay in my office in about 20 seconds, we're going to loop back to, you're the one that took my money. So that's a very common one. So here's some more on hallucinations, delusions, and paranoia. We are not bringing them into reality. Reality therapy is ancient. We do not do that. That causes damage. And you're not going to convince them of it anyway. We go to their world. They do not come to ours. So we're not going to argue with them. We're going to try that redirection and we're going to try to change the subject. Depression, Depression is common for somebody who has dementia. You heard me say earlier, especially in the earlier stage, and then again in the late stages. They will tend to go on and off of an antidepressant, and it may change as the disease progresses. I also put on here several slides about decoding behaviors. I want to make sure that you take a look at those. And I put this one right here, especially. Please take a look at this if you're having repeated behaviors. Keep a notebook, write these things down. What was it that happened right before the challenging behavior? Where did it happen? When did it happen, and who was involved? And you may find your trigger. You may find out, oh my gosh, that is happening right after the news every day. We've got to stop watching the news. There's nothing good on there anyway. Or that's happening right after he eats, whatever it is. It's happening every day it might be a time, it might be a visit, it might be a time of day, it might be a certain room, there's no telling what it could be. But if you're keeping track of it, you may be able to figure it out. This is another tool for you here to use. Sit down and think about who are they as a person and talk with them as that person. They are not the disease. They are a person who happens to have this disease. This is a very small part of their life. The level of dementia, how they're feeling, what you're communicating, their environment, their patterns, and their routines. If you're trying to get somebody to take a shower at 7 a.m. and they always took a bath at 10 p.m., there's the reason you're having a behavior right there. You're completely out of their routine. They don't like showers. They like baths. They aren't used to doing it in the morning. They do it in the evening. That's important to know. I've listed here the top 10 behaviors that tend to respond best to medications. And these are temporary, because all behaviors are going to be temporary. They're going to go in and out of behaviors. And just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean that you won't, but it also doesn't mean that you will, because there's about 36 common behaviors and not everybody's going to have all of them. So most all behavior has a purpose and is triggered by something. It can be physical or verbal. They're usually afraid. There's almost always fear involved somehow because they feel out of control. Make sure you're reassuring them so that they feel safe and that they feel like they're in control. I've got an example there of pills. I had a sweet, sweet lady who just wanted her pills, that she could just have pills. So we filled a pill box full of Tic Tacs, because Tic Tacs come in all different colors. And she knew that her red pills were for her stomach and her green pills were for her head and her white pill, but that gave her some control. And she could then decide when she'd take her pills. Instead of telling her no, we gave her some control with her pills, that they were Tic Tacs. They need to feel valued and that they have a purpose and that they have choices. And we can't change the person, but we can determine that unmet need. And then this is the most important. That's why it's in dark print. The person with dementia is not giving you a hard time. The person with dementia is having a hard time. There's my information. My phone number's on there. My email is on there. And you can contact me at any time.
Very, very good. There's several things in the chat and the email. Some of them are comments, some of them are questions. I'm going to go real quick and ask you, can someone under 40 have dementia?
Absolutely, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I know of somebody 28 and I know of somebody 32 right here in Texas. And I used to have someone 47 in the day program here. So yes, it can be at any age.
Yeah, early onset dementia is definitely. If you look at the first one on the Q&A, the
Sure.
top one.
They have not been diagnosed. Affect the diagnosis of dementia. What meds for dementia can interact with psychiatric? Yeah. Do you see psychiatric conditions that have not been diagnosed affect the diagnosis of dementia, and what meds for dementia could interact with the psychiatric diagnosis? Yes, yes, yes. That happens an awful lot. That's where we're going to want to try to get those psychiatric conditions diagnosed as well as the dementia, so that they can't. The deal is there's really not, you hear us talk about memory meds, but there's really not memory meds. There's Aricept, there's Namenda, there's Exelon, but those are all treating symptoms. They call them memory meds, but those are symptom medications is what they are. And they're only for a handful of people, that not even everybody can take them. We're going to treat the other illnesses first. That's what we're going to treat. So we're going to want to get those diagnoses first in that case. Wow, lots of good comments. Thank you so much. And anybody who has, you can always email me or call me as well. Thank you so much.
There's a few people.
Resources. We do have, I can't do individual counseling because I do some one-on-one counselings with some of our family members, but we have 99 families here. So I would have to hang a shingle, and I don't do that. But I do have 3 different support groups that are open support groups that everybody is welcome to be part of. And Jamie can send that out whenever we send out the information. So I
can get that from you and include that.
Sure.
Just so you know, a few different people asked about sharing slides or recordings with other people. I've answered a couple times. You can share the recording links or slides with anybody you think it might help. We're here to help people, and that's why we put them on YouTube, and that's why they're out there. They're out there for you to share. And again, the flyers help us, let people know what we're doing. That what's coming up. Family members you work with and anything like that.